Thank you. Please be seated. Pranam and loving greetings to all of you. It's so good to see you. And even though I cannot see those of you who are participating online, loving greetings and a warm welcome to you as well. That meditation that we had this morning with Brother Chidanandaji was so beautifully divine. And I think we can't really know how much good it did for our world. I think it uplifted the entire city of the angels. And for those of you who joined us online, wherever you are, you had a major impact as well, uplifting all the citizens of your cities and your countries. And that's why I think that the subject that we're exploring today is going to be interesting, becoming ideal citizens of the world. I think it's one that can be meaningful for us in two ways, because we hope to give a broader glimpse of the global mission that was entrusted to our Guru by our exalted line of Param Gurus, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswar. And number two, I think it will clarify for us the role that we can play in furthering and supporting their mission. So I thought we could start with a little bit of history, especially for those of you who are hearing this, learning this for the first time. It'll be brief, but it'll be interesting, I think. Being at a turning point in the evolution of human consciousness, our Param Gurus foresaw a time when millions of us would no longer be satisfied with just mere belief in God, that we would seek a path that would offer us direct personal experience of our true nature, the blissful soul, a reflection of spirit. And to meet that need, Mahavatar Babaji, in the mid-1800s, resurrected the lost science of Kriya Yoga meditation. And he, in communion with Christ, set in motion a blueprint to accomplish two things: to uplift and awaken humanity on a global scale, and to usher us, their disciples, into a new era of divine awareness. So when our Param Guru sent Paramahansaji to America in 1920, he came here alone, and he knew no one, and he had no set plan for how he was going to fulfill the mission entrusted to him. But because he had that divine conviction in his heart and mind, he blazed a trail to spread Kriya Yoga first in America, first in the West, and eventually to the entire world. And here we are today and every day doing the inner work of discovering who we truly are. And at the same time, we have both a sacred responsibility and a meaningful role to play. Not just for ourselves, but to serve our brothers and sisters of the world. So in this life, we were born in ascending Dwapara Yuga. And for those of you who are new and don't know about the concept of yugas, let me explain. According to Swami Sri Yukteswar in his book, The Holy Science, time unfolds in vast cyclical ages called yugas. And these mark the spiritual evolution of humanity. And these cycles ascend and descend and ascend and descend. And there are 4 yugas, and I'll describe them briefly. The first is Kali Yuga, Kali meaning dark, the dark ages. And these are dominated by materialism and spiritual ignorance. and humanity just recently emerged from the Dark Ages. But when you look around, you still see a little... Don't look too closely. There's still traces of dark mentality in the minds of certain people and in certain regions in the world. The second is Dwapara Yuga, and this is the current age characterized by an understanding and harnessing of energy. And we see this in the advancements of technology, isn't it? And in the sciences. And also it's characterized by growth in intellectual and spiritual consciousness. Now, how that relates to us, this harnessing of energy, when we practice Kriya Yoga, what are we working with? Energy, sound vibration, life force, sacred prana. The third yuga is Treta Yuga, and this is where there's an increase in moral and spiritual development and great awakening of intuition. And then the last is Satya Yuga, the golden age, free from strife, famine, and war. And the beings of Satya Yuga are enlightened because they've realized that the purpose of life is oneness with God. And so everything they do augments their relationship with God. And their minds and hearts are peaceful, loving, compassionate, and harmonious. So this is an age where divine consciousness, truth, and virtue reign supreme. Sounds like a beautiful age, doesn't it? I remember once thinking about Satya Yuga, and I asked our late president this question, Mrinalini Ma, do you think that some of us may have lived in the higher ages? And she looked at me almost in disbelief that I would ask such a question, and she said, my dear, we've been round and round and around many times. And in this life, through some great good fortune, we found our Guru and his Kriya Yoga teachings, precious gifts from Satya Yuga itself. Put that in. Now, I want to share something with you that our Guru said. Deeply reflect on this. He said that at every age, there are souls who live far ahead of their time. Spiritual pioneers, forerunners of a new enlightened humanity. And they've advanced more rapidly than the general masses because they've labored long spiritually in past lives and in this life to embody the virtue and the vibrations of a higher age. How does that relate to us? Well, as we live these teachings and awaken, something inside of us shifts. Divine consciousness begins to move through us, through our thoughts, through our behaviors, through our very existence. And this divine consciousness does not just stay inside of us, it overflows like a great tide, silently but powerfully ushering in the collective awakening of humanity. So we are here to bring in the light, to serve our Guru's mission and our brothers and sisters in this world. And let's consider this. You've read this in the lessons, most of you, that our Guru is showing us how to rise above the limitations of the age that we are born. This age, we can rise above the limitations and live in a golden age, in a Satya Yuga age of divine consciousness. Listen to what he says. Take this in. I am showing you the method as revealed by India's great masters, by which you can transcend the limitations of the age in which you were born. By regular, persistent, deep Kriya Yoga meditation and communion with God, inwardly one can live in a golden age of spiritual consciousness, no matter what yuga or cycle governs the outer world. Jesus Christ was born in Kali Yuga, and yet he manifested all the divine qualities of Satya Yuga. Buddha and all great teachers who incarnated in the darker ages were the same. Practice Hongsa, the Om technique, Guruji says, and especially Kriya Yoga, and you will realize hundreds, even thousands of years of spiritual evolution in one single lifetime. And our Guru also humbly said this: understand what you are associated with, what you are aligned with. Self-realization fellowship is the archway through which glimmerings of the golden age are passing. We are the architects helping to build that archway. We are the architects helping to build that archway. Next point is that our Guru makes clear what our role must be as spiritual architects of a better world. And here's where the work begins. He said, "Reform yourself and you will reform thousands." And he often emphasized this truth. And this isn't just a quote. It's not just a nice quote. It is a cornerstone of his teaching. And today, more than ever, it speaks directly to our times, because when we look at the state that our world is in, it's natural to feel concerned. It's natural to ask, what can I do to make a difference? And what kind of attitude, what perspective should I take? Here's the answer. Listen carefully. Only spiritual consciousness, realization of God's presence in oneself and in every other living being, can save the world. I see no chance for peace without it. Begin with yourself. There's no time to waste. It is your duty to do your part to bring God's kingdom on earth. As we realize the presence and the love of God within, we develop our ability to radiate it without. Now, when you look at the state of the world, you may say, well, this is not very practical. Listen to what he says next. Great saints and masters throughout history have taught that this is the only practical answer to the troubles of mankind. And why? For there is a dynamic relationship between our consciousness and world conditions. And so through self-reform, real inner change, we become instruments for God's work, bringing his kingdom on earth, and this is our divine duty. Now, as I said earlier, it's natural to feel concern when we see what's taking place on our planet. But Master wants us to be anchored in this. He said, we are never alone. God is with us, the Gurus are with us, and no matter what may unfold, we are under their watchful care. And this is the consciousness that Master wants us to be anchored in, to be calm, to be fearless, to be inwardly safe in the shelter of their presence. I want to read to you something that Guruji said during a time of global turmoil not unlike our own. He said this: the world will always have turmoil and trouble. We're not in Satya Yuga, so the world will always have turmoil and trouble. What are you worried about? Go to the shelter of God, where the masters have gone, from whence they are watching and helping the world. You shall have safety forever, not only for yourself, but for all those loved ones who have been entrusted to your care by our Lord and Father. So beautiful, isn't it? We are under their watchful care, and they are watching and helping the world. So we're not alone. And this world, no matter what it goes through, someone's watching, someone's guiding, protecting. So now back to becoming spiritual architects of a better world. Does it seem like we have a little work to do? Well, imagine if each one of us transformed even just one aspect of our inner life this week alone, replacing one single undesirable habit with a good soul, beautiful soul quality, and a commitment to hold to that. If all of us did that, then our combined effort would create a ripple effect that would reach out and impact our world. I recently had a conversation with a woman devotee who shared what was unfolding in her life. And what she shared illustrates the theme of personal transformation and the influence it can have. She said, "Sister, as I try to follow the Guru's sadhana, meditating every day, I'm now realizing the need to engage in some personal inner work. I've come to see that my behaviors and reactions, whether positive or negative, deeply affect my family, my work environment, and my relations. I sense that certain limitations are holding me back from becoming a better version of myself." And she said, this other thought keeps arising. If I make the effort to reform myself, wouldn't that in some way help uplift those around me? These are beautiful insights, and I know that many of you here have those same thoughts. In fact, in one of the fellowship meetings, one of the discussion was, how can I change? Do my Guru's teachings help me to change? But what this young woman was doing, she was moving away from self-interest and moving toward an inner connectedness with all those around her. And she was heeding the call for inner transformation. And this is so much in keeping with what our Guru said. He said, the seekers of divine consciousness should always remember, yoga is not just a science of meditation. It is a science of self-transformation. An essential part of the yoga path is to improve and spiritualize oneself, to transcend the ego consciousness and turn it into the pure divine self. So, the question is, how do we ensure that we do not miss the call for inner transformation? Because we can miss it. We can miss it if we think that meditation and devotion and having spiritual experiences alone is enough to carry us to higher consciousness. Think about that. Yes, devotion and meditation are the hallmark of our path, and spiritual experiences are going to come, and some of them will be extraordinary. They are a gift and encouragement from God, especially in the early stages of our spiritual awakening. But if in those moments when we have a spiritual experience, we are tempted to think, wow, this is it, bring on the experiences, I'm making progress, then we can fall into the trap of spiritual entertainment. And that's still the ego mind and the senses at play. This is what we need to do. Guruji said, seek God for his own sake. Don't yearn for visions or spiritual phenomena or thrilling experiences. The path to the divine is not a circus. As long as there's a desire for phenomenal experiences in meditation, God will not come. And this is why Sri Yukteswarji said, to know God, don't ask for anything. Now that doesn't mean don't pray. Don't ask for experiences. Just launch yourself with faith into his blissful presence within. The real measure of spiritual growth is not what we experience in meditation. It's what we become because of it. And we can ask ourselves, how do I behave in my interactions with others? Do I honor and respect others even though they may mistreat me at times? If not, then the ego is still in charge. And that, Master says, is the one core flaw holding us back. If we are suffering, if we're unhappy, it's the ego that causes that. And it wears many masks, likes and dislikes, low self-esteem, anger, frustration, and all those wonderful undesirable qualities. And all of these qualities mask the brilliance of our soul. It darkens our consciousness. And that's why transcending ego consciousness is the number one goal. Because Guruji said, if we could entirely transcend the ego, we would be with God in an instant. And he would often repeat this Hindu saying, when this I shall die, then will I know who am I. And I know we're all trying. But I think we've all found that sometimes when we try to rise above the ego, we sometimes temporarily slip back into our old ways. And why is that? And it's important to understand why that is. It's because we have lived with that little ego personality for so long, it doesn't want to give up control. It doesn't want the soul to awaken, so it fights to stay in charge and remain in the spotlight. And that's the inner battle that we all face. One moment we're living and acting from pure soul consciousness, and the next moment we fall back into I, me, and mine, isn't it? So what do we do? What does it take? There are two approaches. The first one is the inner one. And we all know that one powerful method for transcending the ego and transforming ourselves is meditation. Without meditation, we lose out. If we're not regular, if we're not even meditating, because the ego stays in charge. With meditation, we transcend our identification with that ego and experience our higher self, the soul, glorious, beautiful, divine, because everything God makes is that way. And every time we meditate, the superconscious mind performs a miracle. During the practice of Kriya, when we withdraw the prana, that sacred light force, and we direct it into the spine and brain, the superconscious mind begins its silent work. That prana seeks out and penetrates those brain grooves where those undesirable habits are stored, are hidden, and it cauterizes them. And at the same time as the prana ascends the spine, it awakens those dormant, sacred energies of spiritual power that are in the chakras. And Brother Chidananda today referred those chakras as shrines of divine consciousness. And when we awaken those sacred energies, when we awaken the chakras, we begin to live more and more in pure soul consciousness, and our intuition becomes more active. Divine love and harmony begins to flow, and peace and calmness becomes predominant. And many of you have shared with us your experiences. You said, I noticed that I'm much more in control of my emotions, less reactive. I'm anchored in calmness. That in itself is priceless, he said. What does that reflect? That reflects the soul's calm self-control. Another devotee said, it takes more and more to disturb my inner peace. And the reason for that is you've raised your threshold. You no longer sweat the small stuff. You're not bogged down by trivial matters. And who of us wouldn't want that? So that's the first step, the inner work. Now the question is, part 2, the question is, how do we hold on to what we've gained in meditation when we step onto the battlefield of life? Our work, our relationships, our responsibilities, all of them can threaten to shake our inner peace, isn't it? The answer lies in how we live moment by moment. And we can do it if we live according to moral and spiritual principles of behavior. And this is where the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali come in. These are timeless principles. They are a gateway to pure soul consciousness. That great Rishi Patanjali gave to us the eightfold path, the 8 limbs of yoga. And at the very foundation of the Yoga Sutras, or that eightfold path, are the 2 yamas and the niyamas. I'm going to just touch on these very briefly because each one of them would require not one class, but a series of classes. So the yamas and the niyamas are not just moral guidelines. They are divine laws given to us by God to guide our thoughts so we are in harmony with the soul. I'm going to touch briefly on the yamas and the niyamas. So there are 5 yamas, and these show us how to interact with the world around us. They are the moral compass for a spiritual life. And the 5 are non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, self-control, and non-attachment. Then we come to the 5 niyamas, and these are more intimate, personal observances, and they shape our relationship with ourself, our thoughts, our habits, and our inner attitudes. And these are a sacred code for living in harmony with our higher self. They are purity, contentment, self-discipline, self-study, and surrender to God. And listen to what Guruji says about this. He says that living according to these principles is essential for purifying the ego mind. So now we're going to talk about one of the niyamas. The most powerful tool for purification of the ego mind is self-study, svadhyaya, as it's called in Sanskrit. Sva means the self, the lower self, as well as the higher self. Adhyaya means study. It's also translated as introspection and self-analysis. And some of you may already be well-versed in self-analysis or introspection, but for those of you who are new to this, svadhyaya or self-analysis is more than just a mental or psychological exercise. In yoga, it is considered an essential purifying practice that leads us to 3 things. It leads us to greater self-awareness beyond what we are aware of now, so we can just understand what drives us. What drives us? It also helps us to anchor us in our higher self, because when we are analyzing our behavior, who is analyzing? Who is watching? Who is observing? It's the higher self. And when done regularly and correctly, self-analysis transforms us into a sattvic person. What is a sattvic person? I remember talking with a devotee once. She was sharing with me about a friend of hers who was on the path and who was such an inspiration and influence in her life. And as she was describing her friend, she said, she's such a Sattvic person. And when she said that, something just gripped me. And I thought mentally, I want to be a Sattvic person. A Sattvic person is someone who is very pure because they live in harmony with the soul's supreme goodness. Their actions are selfless. They need no recognition. And because their minds are calm and clear, they naturally listen to and receive inner promptings from their intuition. And they are objective and fair, and they can navigate successfully through any challenge, through any adversity, emerging stronger and more capable than before. And you can always tell when you're in the presence of a Sattvic person because their presence exudes peace, and they spread their peaceful fragrance wherever they go. We can become Sattvic by honestly identifying and removing the ego masks that do not serve our higher self. Now, to identify and uproot those tendencies takes courage. It takes conscious intent. And I've heard devotees say, well, I'd like to try introspection or self-analysis, but it's very intimidating. Well, we're not alone because, interestingly, as a youth, our master himself resisted self-analysis. And to be an example for us, he shared this story. He said, my master, Sri Yukteswarji, always used to remind me, learn to behave. He repeated this advice so often that I began to wonder if he wasn't being overly cautious about human behavior. Master also was very transparent when he admitted this. He said, I used to resent corrections extremely. For like a good many people, I had not thought any further improvement necessary. And whenever anyone did criticize me, I would laugh and try to argue that he was wrong about me. But as I grew in wisdom, I began to see myself in the mental mirror of others' thoughts about me, especially in the clear mirror of my master's unprejudiced mind. I could see myself better than in the little mirror of my own hazy understanding. I began to associate with persons of calm mind and to ask them how I appeared from their mental perceptions. For I had found out that there was a difference between what I thought others thought of me and what others actually thought of me in their mind. So we see that our Guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar's instruction, learn to behave, took on a profound significance for Guruji. He said, initially I discounted it as unnecessary. But later I came to appreciate that it was one of the greatest truths that he ever taught me. When I read this story of Master, it was very encouraging me, and it reminded me what my own spiritual counselor told me when I was a young brahmacharini. She very lovingly pointed out that there were just a few traits in my nature that could use some refining. And then she refused to tell me what they were. Instead, she said, first, reflect deeply and see what surfaces. And then she said this, ask 3 trusted friends for their honest feedback and see what patterns they observe. So I did it. I introspected, I prayed a lot, and I braced myself, and then I approached 3 very carefully selected friends. One of them's here tonight. And to their credit, they were so warm and sincere, and they all said something like this, "We love you." But actually, there are a few things you might want to look at. And then they very gently pointed out a few growth opportunities for me. So patterns began to emerge. And it was the most humbling and helpful thing I'd ever done, because it was as if the universe had spoken. It was as if Guruji put up a mirror and said, take a look and see what's there. You have some work to do. And why is this important? Because without identifying what it is that conditions our actions and our behaviors on a subconscious level, because there's deep programming in there, if we don't identify them, then our spiritual growth is either stalled or it will remain on a very superficial level. Guruji said introspection is the power of intuition. That's how powerful it is. By which the consciousness can watch its thoughts. Consciousness meaning your higher self. It means your higher self is watching and observing, and eventually that intuition is going to be guiding you to stay away from behaviors that don't serve you. All right, so how do we introspect and when? Master says, do it at the end of the day after you've meditated, when your mind is very calm. And then take just 5 or 10 minutes to review the day and to jot down in a journal, it's always helpful, what you observed, the good and the not so good. And review your reactions, your motivations, your feelings without any judgment, just very calmly, very objectively, without guilt or shame. Jot down the good and the not so good, and then at the end of the week, see what patterns are emerging. It's a very powerful tool for understanding how your mind is working, so that you can train it and ultimately transcend it. So that's at night after meditation. And during the day, notice your responses and your reactions, because they're going to tell you where the ego's showing up. And what do we want to watch for? Well, there's just a few examples here. You can ask yourself, was there something that upset me, that triggered me today? What did I feel? How did I respond? Was I angry? Was I frustrated? Was I sad? Was I authentic today? Was I truthful? Or did I falsely mislead someone in an effort to not hurt or be transparent? Or let's say you observe a tendency to be impatient. Don't ever give that impatience power by saying, oh, I'm so impatient. Counter it with an affirmation. I am patient and understanding. I am patient and understanding. I am patient and understanding. Keep affirmations short. Keep them positive. And repeat them again and again and again and again until they sink deep into the subconscious mind and change those habit patterns. This is the secret for rewiring and reprogramming the subconscious mind. That's why Guruji gives us affirmations. You can make your own or pick up that book, Scientific Healing Affirmations, because it's healing of body, mind, and soul. Or here's another example. Have you ever noticed that self-chatter that spins stories in your head that ends up causing you distress? You know, have you ever found that you rehearse an argument with someone whom later you found out wasn't even mad at you? Or you imagine the worst case scenario and it never even comes to pass. It reminds me of that famous saying by Mark Twain, who said, I have been through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened. But seriously, though, what do you do in those moments? You stop and you ask, is this real? Or is it just a story I'm telling myself that's creating my own suffering? That simple reflection alone breaks the ego's spell. And in that moment, there's a separation between your identification with your ego mind and the soul. You've taken a stand. You've stopped it. And remember this. A person who quietly bends over backwards not to hurt anyone or to offend anyone, that person is working on the ego. Because they made a rule to live by spiritual principles, they made a rule to live by spiritual principles and to always strive to manifest soul qualities. This is Svadhyaya in action, transforming ourselves in the moment. Next point, Svadhyaya also means study of sacred texts to give us the right spiritual perspective in life, and we have a wealth in our Guru's teachings. His commentaries on the Holy Bhagavad Gita, his commentaries on the Gospel of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, the lessons. We have, of course, his anthologies and the new one. I hope you all have a copy now. And many of his other works, and they're filled with practical tools to help break the ego's grasp on our consciousness. And another reason why we should study the scriptures is this. Have you ever wondered what God would be like if he walked upon the earth? This is something that I think of all the time. Read the lives of the saints, the avatars, to see how they lived, the example of their life, and try to emulate it. I thought maybe we could take a look at one of those examples. This is from the New Testament, the Gospel of John. And this is an incident that took place when Jesus was teaching in the temple, when the scribes and the Pharisees dragged in a woman who had been caught in adultery, and they threw her in front of Jesus and said, "Master, this woman was caught in the very act, and the law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" And what did Jesus do? He read the motives of those scribes and Pharisees, and he saw that they were setting a cunning trap for him. If Jesus says, "Let her go," they will accuse him of dismissing the law of Moses. If he says, "Go ahead," then his teaching of forgiveness and compassion and redemption is meaningless. So first, Jesus remains calm, and then he writes something on the ground, and no one ever knows what he wrote. And then he looks up and says, "Let he amongst you who is without sin cast the first stone." Guruji says, in this highly charged confrontation, Jesus displays divine wisdom, compassion, and spiritual skill in handling a most difficult situation. Remember the Sattvic person? How they can navigate through any challenge, emerging stronger and more capable than before. Jesus was a master at that. And Master says he threw an explosive countercharge right in the midst of those sanctimonious hypocrites who hid their own sins and came to condemn the guilty woman. So Jesus turned the tables on them. And he stood before them as a powerful mirror of truth and asked them to do what? Self-reflect. And when they were convicted by their own conscience, exposing their own hypocrisy, one by one they dropped their stones and they slunk away. There are several takeaways from this story, and here's one of them for us. Before judging another, look within first. This doesn't mean that we never correct anyone ever, but check yourself first. Am I coming from a place of judgment, from ego, or am I really trying to help out of care, out of loving for that person? Here's another takeaway, because there's more to the story. When everyone leaves, Jesus turns to the woman and says these powerful words, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" She says, "No one, Lord." And he replies, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." So Jesus doesn't excuse her behavior, but this is what he demonstrates. First, he shows mercy, and of course, he saved her life. Because he understood the karmic cause of her suffering, the patterns that were there, he doesn't condemn her, because if he had condemned her, he would have implanted the consciousness of wrongdoing in her mind. And this is what we do outwardly or silently when we judge another person, because there's a vibration that goes out. Don't ever implant the consciousness of wrongdoing in anyone. What does he do? He gives her an opportunity to go and reform her life, saying, "Go and sin no more." And what did he mean by that? He said, strive to remove the veil of ignorance from your consciousness that causes you so much suffering. Break free from that behavior. And he also implied, through the grace and power of God within me, I will help you. Awake, rise again. This is God's way. He gives us endless opportunities to reform ourselves. That's why we're here today, because we've been round and round and round many times, but we're forgiven, we're accepted. Doesn't matter. You are my children, the Lord says. I want to read to you the description by Paramahansaji of what Jesus did, his compassion, because this is something we want to emulate. Compassion toward all beings, Daya, is necessary for divine realization, for God himself is overflowing with this quality. Those with a tender heart can put themselves in the place of others, feel their suffering, and try to alleviate it. Listen to this, it's so beautiful. Provided a man tries by self-discipline, one of the niyamas, to remove the mountainous load of his past, God comes to the rescue. And this last one is probably one of my all-time favorites, because it shows how loving and compassionate God is. The Lord does not publicly expose anyone's shortcomings, but gives all men a conscience and the chance to correct themselves in the privacy of their soul. So beautiful. Our beloved Daya Mataji, from her own personal experience, tells us how her own guru dealt with the karmic trials of the disciples. She said, when karmic patterns brought trials or suffering into the lives of the disciples, Gurudev's love was always there to offer compassionate aid, even if in facing our tests we may have fallen short. We could always go to him with whatever concern burdened our hearts, without ever fearing he would criticize or judge. And even behind his discipline given to help us overcome ourselves, we always felt his all-accepting love. He saw the best in us, the divine side of our nature, and he never ceased trying to draw it out. This is why it's so important to study the lives of the great ones, that we may emulate their example and strive every day to live in pure consciousness, pure soul consciousness. So now I'd like to ask you to close your eyes and listen to these beautiful words and promise of Guruji. His loving assurance about how much God loves us. God's love is eternal, pursuing his errant children always from incarnation to incarnation, age after age. He follows his offspring with watchful solicitude, ever calling and coaxing them to return to him. He feels responsible for having sent them out from him into the delusion and misery of this world. If they see through the false worldly lures and look to him, above all, if they love him, the giver, they return to him by the power of their virtue. Such is the love of God for all his children, even the sinful ones and those who love him not. Never does he punish even the continuously erring ones with eternal damnation. Somehow, in some way, the unseen God, the master and therefore the wielder of the law of cause and effect, helps all men to come back to him. So through meditation, prayer, and our personal transformation, we can become godly citizens wielding the power to help humanity overcome all destructive forces that are rampant in the world today. Let us make an effort to give a smile to someone in need, not to be so absorbed in our own world and our own thoughts. Let us show kindness and compassion toward others, learning to love those who love us not, to forgive those who do ill against us. This will bring positive results, neutralizing all negative forces around us. Guruji said, we must work hard and be messengers of light, spreading divine love and brotherhood around the world. It is our task as the children of God to strive to preach and to live brotherhood and to spread that spirit of love. Guruji said, that is why the Lord sent me here. And to the last breath, I will work for that brotherhood of man under the fatherhood of God. So now, I would like to invite you to join me in an affirmation that we can radiate God's loving presence to the world. So I'd like to ask you to please sit upright in your seats. Close your eyes and lift your gaze to the point between the eyebrows, the center of spiritual consciousness. Expel the breath. Now inhale, filling the lungs completely. Now exhale and emptying the lungs completely. Inhale and fill the lungs to capacity. Exhale, completely emptying the lungs. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Now feel that center of peace within you. And as we affirm, first loudly, then a little softer, mentally visualize these soul qualities arising within your consciousness, moving through you, invoking the presence of God. Please repeat after me. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy love and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy light and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy peace and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy joy and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy love and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy light and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy joy and I are one. O Father divine, O Mother divine, thy peace and I are one. Thy love and I are one. Thy light and I are one. Thy peace and I are one. Thy joy and I are one. Now we're going to radiate those soul qualities to the entire world. Please repeat after me. O Father divine, O Mother divine, I send thy love to all. O Father divine, O Mother divine, I send thy light to all. O Father divine, O Mother divine, I send thy peace to all. O Father divine, O Mother divine, I send thy joy to all. And now, let us pray together. Repeat after me, and then we will raise our hands and chant Om and send God's healing blessings and vibrations to all our brothers and sisters of the world. They are submerged in eternal light. It permeates every particle of their being. They are living in that light. The divine spirit fills them within and without. They are submerged in eternal light. It permeates every particle of their being. They are living in that light. The divine spirit fills them within and without. The divine spirit fills them within and without. The divine spirit fills them within and without. Now let us raise our hands and chant Om for their bodies. Om. Om for their minds. Om for their souls. And now let us chant Om for world peace. Om. Let's pray together. Father, Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavtar Babaji, Lardi Mashai, Swami Sri Yukteswar Ji, Divine Gurudev, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we bow to you all. May thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Om. Peace. Amen. May God and Gurus bless us all and bless our world. Jai Guru. Jai Guru.